Hello everyone. Now let's talk about how student loans work. We're going to cover four different aspects of student loans. So first, we'll talk about what are student loans? And then let's move on to talk about borrowing and exactly how much can you borrow? And then our third topic will be about interest rates. Let's figure out how interest rates work. And then finally, let's talk about repayment. How do you actually pay those loans back? And the reason why we want to talk about student loans now when you're in 10th grade is so that when you get to college, and if you do happen to have to take out student loans, you're not figuring all this out as you go along. You can go into the process with a lot of good information so that you can make good decisions. So let's back up and go to our first question about what are student loans. So student loans are sums of money that you borrow for your education and you pay them back over time with interest. So we're going to borrow money for education and then we're going to pay back with interest. And we'll talk about that interest in a little bit. I think that was our number 3 item that we were going to talk about. So within this topic of what are student loans, let's break this down into 2 different areas. Let's talk about how do you apply and the different types of student loans. So talking about how do you apply for student loans first. I need a bigger eraser. Okay, so how do you apply for student loans? Well, the first thing that you're going to have to do is fill out the FAFSA. I always get this. I always want to say FAFSA, but it's FAFSA. FAFSA. So what is that? What's the FAFSA? It is the free application for federal student aid. So I know that's a mouthful, but this is a very, very important step to understand. If you're going to apply for colleges, then you want to go ahead and fill out the FAFSA whether or not you think that you're going to need it. So if you think that you're going to get a full ride scholarship, which is great, go ahead and fill out the FAFSA because you never know what additional money you might need or what additional money you might qualify for. So make sure that you're paying attention to what the deadlines are because there's a hard and fast deadline for filling out your FAFSA and you don't want to miss it. Now, when you're filling out your FAFSA, it's going to matter whether or not you are a dependent or an independent student. And so what that means is that if you are a dependent student, meaning you're dependent upon parents or a guardian for your financial well-being, then you're going to use your parent or guardian's financial information. So it's important that they are filing their tax returns, and they have that information available because you're going to need that to complete your FAFSA. Now, if you are independent, meaning that maybe you're emancipated or for whatever reason you are not dependent on some other adult for your day-to-day well-being, then you would file as independent. And if you're not sure which one you are, there are lots of folks that you can ask. You can also, when you fill out your FAFSA, you can also get a prediction on how much money they think that you'll be eligible for in student aid and how much you'll be responsible for. And so that's all kind of based on your income and how much help, how much student aid the federal government thinks that you will need. So when you get ready to fill out your FAFSA, you really don't want to just plop down and think that you're just going to start clicking buttons. You want to get yourself organized. You will want any federal tax information, again, for you if you're independent, or for your parent or guardian if you're a dependent. Bank statements, and any pay stubs or employment information, because you're going to need all of that information. Basically, they want to know how much income do you have to contribute towards your college expenses, and how much need or how much help are you going to need to pay for those expenses. So then, if you are admitted to a program at a college or university, that school will send a financial aid offer to you that may include some federal loans. And so that's money that would be loaned to you by the federal government. Now, also, there's a possibility that you could go out and get private loans. These are loans or money loaned by a bank, a credit agency or a credit union, or some other type of organization, basically anybody other than the federal government. And they have an entirely separate application process than the FAFSA that we're talking about here. And so what you can do is you can compare private loans on websites like, let's see, finaid.org or alltuition.com. So these would be great sites for information about private loans. So why don't we stop here, and then we'll come back and talk about the different types of loans, because we've already distinguished between federal loans and private loans. So let's come back in the next video and talk about the specific differences.